Greetings and salutations, welcome to my lupine office. Like what I've done with the place? Moving on. Are you down with OMD? Ask yourself that one question. Are you down with OMD? Stay tuned to find out if I'm down with OMD. Hi everyone, this is the Olympus OM D EM5. And in order to properly explain why I'm so excited about this camera, it warrants a little history lesson. The year 2012 marks the 40th anniversary of the introduction of the OM family. The OM1 was the first member back in 1972. I actually shot with an OM N1 a decade ago in high school. So with that said, the new OM D EM5 is the leader of the new digital OM revolution. Instead of a mirror box and a film spool, we now have a brand new 16 megapixel sensor of the Micro Four Thirds persuasion. In addition, the camera is spackled with all types of new technology. But the big question is, can the OMD trump Olympus's pen cameras? Well, without waiting any further, let's start out with design. The Olympus OM D EM5 brings a tear to my eye for nostalgic reasons. Look at it stacked up next to my OM1N. From 10 feet away, these cameras are almost identical. So 10 rounds of applause go to Olympus for retaining the OM's aesthetic heritage. But upon closer examination, you'll find that these cameras are very different. We'll start with the OM D EM5's tilting LCD screen in the back. It's 610,000 pixels, and it's also a touch screen. So there are various operations that could be performed with this camera, such as using the live guide in auto mode, swiping and zooming in playback mode, and selecting options in the super control panel. But the more thrilling news in the monitor department is the fact that the OM D EM5 has a 1.4 million pixel electronic viewfinder with a 120 frame per second refresh rate. The viewfinder is also intelligent with an eye sensor, so when you go to place the camera up to your eye, it transitions to the viewfinder from the LCD screen. And that is awesome. Another thing about the new OM D EM5 is that it's compatible with, of course, all of Olympus's new Micro Four Thirds lenses, including the 12 to 50 millimeter EZ lens. EZ stands for electronic zoom. This lens actually has an electronic motor built in and zooms seamlessly and silently. You can also switch to manual mode, and there's a designated macro mode as well. I was a little skeptical of the electronic zoom at first, but after using it, I couldn't stop. Now the OM D EM5 also has an accessory port up top as well as a hot shoe. This hosted the included flash, but it also hosted Olympus's microphone that they offer as an accessory. Now unfortunately in the sound department, this camera lacks mic and headphone jacks. So if you're serious about video, that's going to be something to factor in. On the plus side, the battery pack was larger than I expected and gave me great life throughout the day. One note about the design is that the buttons are fairly squishy. It took a while for me to get acclimated to them, but they're very responsive and they did the job. One of my favorite things about the OM D EM5 was the command dial duo. Olympus even salvaged some real estate by wrapping one of them around the shutter button. But the most glorious thing about the OM D EM5's design? Instant photography street cred. Now as far as features and technologies, Olympus took out the giant butter knife and slathered this thing from lens to LCD screen. For manual mode, we have a shutter speed that goes from 60 seconds all the way up to 1/4000th of a second. I love that for long exposure shooting. Although the EZ lens that I shot with had a minimum f3.5 aperture, I was able to stop it all the way down to an f22. And thanks to the new sensor, we had an ISO range of 200 to 25,600. So that's currently the highest cap on one of Olympus's Micro Four Thirds cameras. Some advanced features that you'll find in the DSLR market: there's a live histogram, a vertical and horizontal level meter, all kinds of delicious bracketing like auto exposure, white balance, focal length, ISO, and even art filters bracketing. We could do multiple exposure shooting. We could shoot at different aspect ratios. But one of the biggest introductions was the shadow highlight grid. I could actually adjust the shadows and the highlights natively in the camera, which was basically adjusting the dynamic range on the fly. The OM D EM5 also let me adjust gradation, saturation, sharpness, contrast, and other image parameters. Now Olympus claims the OM D EM5 has the fastest autofocus in the world. I would have to agree with that. It is Roadrunner fast. There's also a new 5-axis image stabilization system, and I found it to perform very well in image and video mode. As far as continuous shooting, we could shoot at 9 frames per second at full resolution. And what would an Olympus camera be without the plethora of art modes? The OMD EM5 has 11 different art modes that could be bracketed all at once. And I blame this camera and Olympus for turning me into a dramatic tone junkie. Video mode also has a new feature. It's called multi-echo, and what that does is blur the frame rate a little bit, which makes it look like an Unsolved Mysteries reenactment scene. I loved the fact that I could shoot PASM in video mode, and the continuous autofocus was exceptionally quick and silent in video mode. Now, of course, the Olympus OMD EM5 has a ton of different scene modes. However, a panorama sweep mode was missing from the fold, and you'd think that a camera with so much technology would have one. Now, lastly, if you shoot in intelligent auto mode, we have Live Guide. That's a mode for beginners. It lets you adjust the shutter speed, the contrast, the sharpness, things like that, only it does it by a set of easy sliders, so you don't have to fool with all the manual controls. The great thing about the OMD EM5 is that paired with the touchscreen, it works flawlessly. Also, about the touchscreen, the sensitivity on this baby is amazing. It rivals my iPhones. The menu system is also highly responsive, although I found that some options got buried down in the deep abyss at times. But with all of the different customization available on this camera, like the 2 function buttons, it was really easy to walk my way around this camera in no time. Now let's talk image quality. The Olympus OMD EM5 has a brand spanking new 16 megapixel live MOS sensor of the Micro Four Thirds ilk. That means the sensor is slightly smaller than an APS-C size sensor found on a mid-range DSLR. When it came to still picture quality, the Olympus OMD EM5 was one of the best Micro Four Thirds performers I've seen to date. I've always been a big fan of Olympus image quality and their higher tier cameras, and the Olympus OMD EM5 did not fail me. Now, the only thing I can say is that ISO was a bit tricky. Anything at ISO 6400 or higher was pretty noisy, so I really had to watch the higher ISO levels, especially 12,800 and 25,600. Now, video mode was an entirely different animal. This camera records 1920 by 1080 60i videos in the H.264 MOV format. You can also shoot in motion JPEG. However, if you value image quality and compatibility with nonlinear editing programs, avoid motion JPEG at all costs. From the get-go, the thing that bummed me out about the video mode on the OMD EM5 was the fact that it lacked a native 24p mode. That's going to be something for more serious videographers to consider, in addition to the lack of the mic jack and the lack of the headphone jack. For the most part, quality was very good in bright and low light. However, there were some situations where I encountered some strange compression artifacts, while the camera was doing auto exposure, auto focus, and auto white balance. So for the most part, video mode was good, but I think Olympus can do some improving on the next iteration of the OMD EM5. So now it's time for the Buffalo Call with the Olympus OMD EM5. You down with OMD? This guy's down with OMD. Olympus has done a fantastic job with this camera, especially since the original OM1's shoes are so big to fill. The OMD EM5 is a wonderful way to celebrate the OM family's 40th birthday, and I salute this guy as the leader of the digital OM revolution. If you're in the market for a Micro Four Thirds camera, do not overlook the Olympus OMD EM5. For the full review, go to technobuffalo.com. Until next time, I'm Mike Perlman, and I'm down with OMD. 1, 2, 3, 4. Get your woman on the floor. Gotta get up, get down. Gotta get up, get down.